U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, Necessary Evil or a Necessary Evil, presented by Corinne Lindsay. There are some who feel the agency is necessary in that they provide protection of every state equally. Their fundamental duties are to provide protection against illegal immigration, human and drug trafficking, terrorism, enforcement of federal laws, and the federal government has constitutional backing in that Congress decides naturalization procedures, and Congress has been backing federal immigration procedures that ICE enforce. Some take a federalist point of view that the centralized agency is appropriate to protect the livelihood of the entire country. They follow the guidelines established in the Pendleton Act that only those with merit, training, and experience are to run this organization. We see this in Weber's theories, in that there's a hierarchical system as well with rules of checks and balances that govern how the Bureau is to be ran, the evaluations, and their policies and procedures. There's a question I posed from this week's readings of Aaron Wadowski that many who are for this agency couldn't really answer. And that is, how can we evaluate or measure the effectiveness of this Bureau? So on the flip side, we have those who feel the priorities placed upon the Bureau are evil. They believe that we're a nation compiled of immigrants, and that they call these immigrants in today's terms as dreamers. History has shown us that as a nation, we don't tolerate deportation and strong presence of federal government within our state law enforcement. This was seen in the Alien Sedition Acts of 1798, where President John Adams was able to pass laws that provided the federal government with powers to deport and to silence those who opposed the federal government. This didn't last, and he was unseated in 1800 elections. Most of the sedition laws were repealed by Congress or allowed to expire. Many people agree with the anti-federalist attitude of a decentralized local government handling immigration efforts, and that many states and even local cities have become sanctuary cities and states. They feel deportation is unethical, that it tears apart families when they send the parents away but keep the children who are born here, and then they ultimately place them into the foster system. There are people who have expressed that immigrants do the labor that Americans simply don't want to do, backbreaking labor or lesser class jobs in the farming and janitorial or cleaning industries. And there's also the fact that enforcement costs for deportation are enormous, and the costs spill over onto local governments to house those in local jails prior to deportation, not to mention the influx of children into the local social services system. This is where these children who already have loving and caring families are going into the foster system, overcrowding that area for those children that are actually in need of the services. There are also those who feel ICE is a necessary evil. They recognize the terrible implications and invasion of our local government by the federal government, but also realize there's a problem that we need to basically cooperate with each other to solve. So these problems are like overcrowding of hospitals, those that have no insurance, and disease. They even have diseases that have been wiped out by immunizations, or should have been, but they're being spread throughout our communities. The unemployment of Americans has been traced back to illegal immigrants taking jobs with much less pay and under-the-table wages. There are issues with the issuance of identifications to those who cannot prove citizenship. California is huge with doing this. And there's even local laws that are passed that don't request proof of citizenship when voting. This causes people to think, are we voting on these laws, or are those who are not even citizens voting for these laws? There are many laws that have passed that I, for one, didn't vote for, and I know that there isn't anybody that I could find that I knew of that voted for them. There's even a problem with illegal immigrants draining our resources, overcrowding our prisons and medical facilities without contributing financially. I don't know of any way for an illegal immigrant who gets paid under the table to pay their taxes, especially without a social security number. When speaking on those who are for and those who are against ICE, most would be willing to have a cooperative federalism approach to this bureau. The local law enforcement cannot keep up with the large demands of combating human trafficking and terrorism. They're limited in their jurisdiction. ICE is not limited. They can travel across state lines, and they can even go into other countries. They have the backing of Congress through the Constitution, but there should be a limited area of influence and policy analysis, including reform, with regards to accountability. These were proposed by Wadowski and the reading of Alice Rivlin from this week. So both local and federal governments can work together to solve issues that I previously addressed. Going back to what Theodore Lowy described as constitutional democracy, they can do this without encroaching on the very essence of our nation's culture. This is the end of my presentation. Here are my references for this week, and farewell.